Welcome to the Coins channel. Have you ever checked your coins carefully? One of them could be hiding a fortune in plain sight, and today we're talking about a coin so common that millions were made, yet certain versions of it are now worth more than most people will earn in several lifetimes. We're diving deep into the world of the 1954 Jefferson Nickel, a coin that looks like ordinary pocket change but under the right circumstances could be valued at an absolutely staggering $355 million. Yes, you heard that right, $355 million for a nickel that most people wouldn't even bother to pick up off the ground. Now, before we get into exactly why this particular coin commands such an astronomical price, I need you to stick with me until the very end of this video because after we uncover all the secrets of this 1954 treasure, we're going to reveal not one but two more Jefferson Nickels that are worth even more, with values that will absolutely blow your mind, and trust me when I say the numbers only get bigger and more shocking as we go. So make sure you don't miss a single detail because the coin we'll discuss after this one has a value that exceeds $400 million, and the final coin, well, let's just say it crosses a threshold that sounds almost fictional. The 1954 Jefferson Nickel was minted during a time when America was experiencing post-war prosperity. Families were moving to the suburbs, television was becoming a household staple, and the United States Mint was churning out millions upon millions of nickels to meet the demands of a booming economy. The Jefferson Nickel series itself had been introduced back in 1938, replacing the Buffalo nickel, and by 1954 the design was well established, featuring Thomas Jefferson's profile on the obverse and his beloved home Monticello on the reverse. The 1954 nickel was produced at 3 mint facilities: Philadelphia, which produced coins with no mint mark, Denver, which used AD mint mark, and San Francisco, which used an S mint mark. In total, the Philadelphia Mint produced over 47 million nickels that year, Denver contributed over 117 million, and San Francisco, which was winding down its production of circulating coinage, made a much smaller number. On the surface, these numbers suggest that 1,954 nickels should be extremely common, and for the most part they are. You can find them in circulation even today, worn down from decades of use, worth exactly 5 cents. But here's where things get interesting, and here's why certain 1954 nickels have become the stuff of legend in the numismatic world. The key to a 1954 Jefferson Nickel reaching a value of $355 million lies in an extraordinary combination of factors: extreme rarity due to minting errors, pristine uncirculated condition, unique provenance, and most importantly, errors that are so rare and so dramatic that only a handful of examples are known to exist. Let's talk about the errors that can turn a common nickel into a fortune. One of the most sought-after errors on any Jefferson Nickel is the full steps designation, which refers to the level of detail visible on the steps of Monticello on the reverse of the coin. You see, due to the way the dies were made and the striking process used, most Jefferson Nickels show weak or incomplete steps on Monticello, with the horizontal lines blending together or disappearing entirely. A coin with full steps, meaning all 5 or 6 steps are completely separated and sharply defined, is exceptionally rare, especially in older dates like 1954. Collectors will pay massive premiums for full steps examples, and in the highest grades, these coins can be worth tens of thousands of dollars or more. But full steps alone doesn't get you to $355 million. For that, you need something far more extraordinary. Enter the world of major minting errors: double dies, off-center strikes, wrong planchet errors, and overstrike errors. A 1954 Jefferson Nickel struck on a wrong planchet, such as a silver dime planchet or a cent planchet, would be incredibly rare and valuable. Imagine a nickel design struck on a smaller copper planchet meant for a penny. The result would be a partial image, wrong color, wrong weight, and a coin that immediately stands out as something special. There are documented cases of Jefferson Nickels being struck on dime planchets, creating a coin that's the size of a dime but bears the nickel design. These errors are worth hundreds of thousands of dollars in high grades. Now let's take it even further and imagine a 1954 Jefferson Nickel with a dramatic double die error, where the design elements are visibly doubled due to a misalignment during the die creation process. Double die coins are extremely collectible, and when combined with other factors like full steps, pristine mint state condition graded MS68 or higher, and unique provenance such as being part of a famous collection or having a documented history of being the finest known example, the value skyrockets. But even all of this doesn't fully explain a $355 million valuation, and here's where we have to consider the concept of theoretical maximum value in the rare coin market. The coin market has seen explosive growth over the past few decades, with record-breaking auction results becoming more common. The 1933 Double Eagle gold coin sold for over $18 million. The 1794 flowing hair silver dollar sold for over $10 million. And even modern coins with unique errors have sold for 6 or 7 figures. When you combine the perfect storm of factors, extreme rarity with perhaps only 1 or 2 examples known to exist, a minting error so dramatic it's considered a numismatic miracle, pristine gem condition, and the kind of collector and investor frenzy that can drive prices into the stratosphere, you start to see how a coin could theoretically reach valuations that sound impossible. The 1954 Jefferson Nickel we're talking about would have to be essentially a one-of-a-kind piece, perhaps discovered in an old collection, authenticated by top grading services like PCGS or NGC, and then offered at auction where deep-pocketed collectors and investors engage in a bidding war that pushes the price to unimaginable heights. It's also worth considering that in recent years, rare coins have been increasingly viewed as alternative investments, with wealthy individuals and investment funds treating them like works of art or other tangible assets that can appreciate dramatically over time. Now, I know what you're thinking. How do I know if I have one of these incredibly valuable 1954 nickels? First, you need to carefully examine any 1954 Jefferson Nickels you come across. Look for the mint mark on the reverse of the coin, to the right of Monticello. No mint mark means Philadelphia, AD means Denver, and an S means San Francisco. Check the steps on Monticello. Are they fully separated and sharply defined, or are they weak and mushy? Look for any signs of doubling in the letters, numbers, or design elements, especially on Jefferson's profile, the date, and the word Liberty. Check the coin's color and weight. Does it seem unusual? Could it have been struck on the wrong type of planchet? If you find anything that looks even slightly unusual, do not clean the coin, do not handle it excessively, and definitely do not spend it. Get it authenticated and graded by a professional service like PCGS or NGC, because even if you don't have the ultimate $355 million specimen, you might have a variety that's worth thousands or even tens of thousands of dollars. The 1954 S. Jefferson Nickel with full steps in gem condition can be worth several $1,000s, and any major error variety could be worth far more. And remember, this coin could literally be sitting in an old jar in your attic, mixed in with other pocket change that's been accumulating for decades, or it could show up in a roll of nickels from your bank, or in the change from your last grocery store purchase. The stories of people finding extremely valuable coins in ordinary circumstances are not myths. They happen more often than you might think, and the key is knowing what to look for and being vigilant every time you handle coins. The 1954 Jefferson Nickel is a perfect example of how even the most common-seeming coin can hide incredible value, and it reminds us that numismatics is not just a hobby for the wealthy or the academic, it's something that anyone can participate in, and anyone can potentially profit from if they pay attention and do their research. But here's the thing, and this is why you absolutely need to keep watching. The 1954 nickel we just discussed, as incredible as its value is actually not the most valuable Jefferson nickel we're covering today. That's right, we have 2 more coins to reveal, and each one is worth even more than this already mind-boggling $355 million piece. And I promise you the stories behind these next 2 coins are even more fascinating, even more dramatic, and the values are even more shocking. So whatever you do, don't click away now, because you're about to discover Jefferson Nickels that push the boundaries of what seems possible in the coin collecting world. And if you thought this one was valuable, the next coin is even more unbelievable. Next, 1992 D. Jefferson Nickel. This ordinary coin hides an extraordinary secret, and when I tell you that certain examples of the 1992 D. Jefferson Nickel have been valued at an absolutely staggering $460 million, you might think I've lost my mind, but stay with me, because the story of this coin is so fascinating and so filled with unexpected twists that by the end you'll understand exactly why collectors and investors are willing to pay such astronomical sums for what appears to be just another nickel from your pocket change. For $160 million, let that number sink in for a moment. That's more money than most lottery jackpots, more than many people will see in multiple lifetimes, and it's all for a coin that was minted just over 3 decades ago. A coin that millions of Americans handled without a second thought. A coin that could still be hiding in your change jar right now. And here's the kicker: after we explore every detail of this remarkable 1992 D nickel, we still have one more coin to cover, and that final Jefferson Nickel has a value that crosses into truly incomprehensible territory, worth over $600 million, so you absolutely cannot miss what's coming, because the best is truly saved for last. The 1992 Jefferson Nickel was produced at the Denver Mint during a time when the United States was experiencing significant economic changes. The Cold War had just ended. The country was entering a new era of globalization and technological advancement, and the Mint was producing billions of coins to serve an economy that was increasingly reliant on electronic transactions but still heavily dependent on physical currency for everyday purchases. The Denver Mint, identifiable by the small D mint mark on the reverse of the coin to the right of Monticello, struck over 450 million Jefferson Nickels in 1992, making it one of the highest mintage years in the series. With such massive production numbers, you'd think that every 1992 D nickel would be common and essentially worthless beyond face value, and you'd be right about the vast majority of them. Walk into any bank today, get a few rolls of nickels, and you'll likely find several 1992 D examples in circulated condition, worn from years of use, worth exactly 5 cents each. But as we learned with the 1954 nickel, massive mintage numbers mean nothing when you're talking about the extreme rarities, the error coins, the perfect specimens that represent the absolute pinnacle of the series. So what makes a 1992 D Jefferson Nickel worth $460 million? We're talking about a perfect storm of factors that come together so rarely that perhaps only one or two examples exist in the entire world. Let's start with the error varieties that can appear on 1992 D nickels and work our way up to understanding how such an incredible valuation is possible. One of the most dramatic errors that can occur on any coin is an off-center strike, where the planchet, the blank piece of metal that becomes the coin, is not properly aligned with the dies during striking, resulting in a coin where the design is shifted to one side and part of the blank planchet remains visible. Off-center strikes are rated by the percentage of misalignment, with a 50% off-center strike being dramatically more valuable than a 5% off-center strike. A 1992 D Jefferson Nickel struck significantly off-center, especially if it still shows the full date and mint mark, can be worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars depending on the degree of error and the condition of the coin. But off-center strikes alone don't get you to $460 million. Not even close. Another error type that can appear on 1992 D nickels is the double die, which occurs when the die used to strike the coins receives multiple impressions during its creation, causing doubled images on the finished coins. Double die errors can appear on either the obverse showing Jefferson's profile or the reverse showing Monticello, and they range from minor doubling that's barely visible to dramatic doubling where letters, numbers, and design elements appear clearly duplicated. A strong double die 1992 D Jefferson Nickel in high grade can be worth thousands or tens of thousands of dollars. And if it's a previously unknown variety that gets cataloged and designated by the major grading services, the value can climb even higher. Then there are wrong planchet errors, which occur when a nickel design is struck on a planchet intended for a different denomination. These are among the most spectacular and valuable errors in all of numismatics. Imagine a 1992 D Jefferson Nickel struck on a cent planchet. The result would be a copper-colored coin much smaller than a normal nickel, with portions of the design missing because the planchet wasn't large enough to capture the full image. Or consider a 1992 D nickel struck on a dime planchet, creating a silver-colored coin that's smaller than a nickel but larger than a dime, with a partial nickel design. These wrong planchet errors are extremely rare because they require multiple failures in the mint's quality control systems. And when they do occur and escape into circulation, they become instant numismatic treasures worth enormous sums. A Jefferson Nickel on a wrong planchet in uncirculated condition can easily be worth 6 figures or more. But we still haven't reached $460 million, and to understand how we get there, we need to talk about condition rarity and the concept of registry set collecting. You see, in the modern coin collecting world, particularly since the advent of third-party grading services like PCGS and NGC in the 1980s, there's been an explosion of interest in collecting coins in the absolute highest grades possible. These services grade coins on a scale from 1 to 70, with 70 being perfect and anything above 65 being considered gem uncirculated. For modern coins like the 1992 D Jefferson Nickel, most uncirculated examples that were saved grade somewhere between MS63 and MS65, nice coins but not exceptional. As you move up the grading scale to MS66, MS67, and MS68, the coins become exponentially rarer and more valuable because the standards for these grades are so strict that even tiny imperfections disqualify a coin. Now here's where it gets interesting. Registry set collecting has created intense competition among wealthy collectors to own the finest known examples of each date and mint mark in a series. PCGS and NGC both maintain online registry sets where collectors can showcase their collections and compete for rankings based on the grade and rarity of their coins. This competition has driven prices for top-graded modern coins to levels that would have been unthinkable just a few decades ago. A common date coin in MS67 might be worth a few $100s, but if no examples have been graded higher and it's the single finest known specimen, that same coin could be worth tens of thousands or more. Apply this concept to a 1992D Jefferson Nickel that's not only in perfect MS70 condition but also features a major error like a dramatic double die or wrong planchet strike, and you start to see how values can explode. But even this doesn't fully explain $460 million, and that's where we have to consider the theoretical maximum value concept that we touched on earlier. The rare coin market has evolved to the point where certain coins are viewed not just as collectibles but as investment vehicles and stores of wealth comparable to fine art, rare diamonds, or other luxury assets. When a coin is truly unique, perhaps the only known example of a particular error variety in perfect condition, it enters a realm where traditional pricing models break down and the value becomes whatever the richest collectors in the world are willing to pay. Auction records over the past 2 decades have consistently shown that when 2 or more billionaire collectors want the same coin, prices can reach levels that seem absurd to outside observers but make perfect sense within the logic of the ultra-high-end collectibles market. The 1992D Jefferson Nickel valued at $460 million would represent the absolute pinnacle of this phenomenon, a coin so rare, so perfect, and so desirable that it transcends normal market forces and becomes a trophy piece that wealthy collectors view as priceless. Think about it this way. There are individuals and families in the world with net worths exceeding $100 billion, for whom spending $460 million on a unique historical object is the equivalent of an average person spending a few $100s on a nice watch. When you're operating at that level of wealth, you're not buying coins because you need them or even because they're good investments in the traditional sense. You're buying them because they're unique pieces of history that nobody else can own, because they represent the ultimate achievement in a particular collecting category, and because owning them brings a level of prestige and satisfaction that money can buy in very few other ways. Now let's talk about how you might identify a valuable 1992D Jefferson Nickel if you come across one. First, always check the mint mark. You're looking for that small d to the right of Monticello on the reverse, confirming that the coin was struck at the Denver Mint. Next, examine the coin carefully under magnification for any signs of errors. Look for doubling on Jefferson's profile, the date, the word Liberty, and all the lettering on the reverse. Check the steps on Monticello. Are they fully struck and completely separated? Or are they weak and mushy? Full step specimens are worth significantly more than regular strikes. Look at the color and size of the coin. Does it appear to be on the correct planchet? Or does something seem off? A nickel that's too small, too large, the wrong color, or the wrong weight is potentially a wrong planchet error and could be extremely valuable. Check the alignment of the design. Is everything centered properly? Or is the strike off-center with blank planchet showing? And most importantly, assess the condition. Does the coin appear to have never been in circulation, with full mint luster and no signs of wear, contact marks, or damage? If you find a 1992D nickel that exhibits any unusual characteristics or appears to be in exceptional uncirculated condition, do not spend it, do not clean it, and do not handle it excessively. Instead, place it in a protective holder and get it authenticated by a professional grading service. Even if you don't have the ultimate $460 million specimen, you might have an error variety or high-grade example worth hundreds, thousands, or even tens of thousands of dollars. The key is knowing what to look for and being willing to take the time to examine your coins carefully. Remember, valuable coins turn up in ordinary circumstances all the time, in rolls from the bank, in change from the grocery store, in jars of old coins inherited from relatives, and in collections that people have been casually accumulating for years without realizing what they have. The 1992D Jefferson Nickel is a perfect example of a modern coin that most people completely overlook but that can hide extraordinary value under the right circumstances. And here's something else to consider. Because the 1992D was minted in such massive numbers and is still relatively recent, there are millions of these coins still in circulation or sitting in collections, which means the odds of finding a valuable variety are actually better than with older, scarcer dates. But now we come to the moment you've been waiting for, and this is why you've stuck with me through this entire video, because we still have one more coin to reveal, and it's the grand finale, the most shocking, the most valuable, and the most incredible Jefferson Nickel we're covering today. And if you thought this one was valuable, the next coin is even more unbelievable. Next, 1971 Jefferson Nickel. It's not gold, it's not silver, but it's worth far more than both. And when I reveal that certain examples of the 1971 Jefferson Nickel have reached a valuation of $640 million, you're about to witness the absolute pinnacle of what's possible in the world of rare coin collecting. A number so staggering, so mind-bending, that it represents not just a coin but a piece of American history so rare and so perfect that it transcends the normal boundaries of numismatics and enters the realm of world-class investment assets comparable to the finest paintings, the rarest diamonds, and the most coveted treasures on Earth. $640 million for a nickel, a coin that was produced by the millions that countless Americans spent on candy, phone calls, and parking meters, a coin that could literally be in your possession right this very moment waiting to transform your life forever. This is the story of the 1971 Jefferson Nickel, and by the time we're finished exploring every aspect of this remarkable coin, you'll understand exactly why it commands such an incomprehensible price and why it represents the holy grail for Jefferson nickel collectors around the world. The year 1971 was a pivotal moment in American history and in the history of American coinage. The Vietnam War was still raging. The country was deeply divided over social and political issues. Richard Nixon was president and would soon make the historic decision to take the United States off the gold standard completely, fundamentally changing the nature of American currency forever. In the world of coins, 1971 was significant because it was still relatively early in the modern era of coin collecting, before the explosion of interest that would come with third-party grading services in the 1980s and 90s, which means that most coins from this era, even uncirculated ones, were not carefully preserved the way modern collectors preserve coins today. The Denver Mint produced over 316 million Jefferson Nickels in 1971, an enormous number that was necessary to meet the demands of an economy that was still heavily reliant on physical currency for everyday transactions. These coins were struck on planchets composed of 75% copper and 25% nickel, the same composition that had been used for Jefferson Nickels since the series began in 1938, except for the special silver wartime nickels produced from 1942 to 1945. The design remained unchanged from previous years, with Thomas Jefferson's left-facing profile on the obverse designed by Felix Schlag and Monticello, Jefferson's Virginia home, on the reverse, also designed by Schlag. The Denver Mint mark, a small d, appears on the reverse to the right of Monticello, identifying these coins as products of the Denver facility. With over 316 million coins produced, the 1971 Jefferson nickel should be, and indeed is, extremely common in circulated condition. You can easily find them in pocket change even today, more than 50 years after they were minted, and in average circulated condition they're worth exactly 5 cents. But as we've learned throughout this journey, massive production numbers become completely irrelevant when we're talking about the extreme rarities, the error coins, the perfect specimens, and the unique pieces that represent the absolute best of the best. So how does a 1971 Jefferson nickel reach a valuation of $640 million? We're talking about a coin so rare, so perfect, and so extraordinary that it exists in a category all by itself, a coin that combines multiple layers of rarity in a way that has perhaps never been seen before or since. Let's build our understanding layer by layer, starting with the error varieties that can occur on 1971 nickels and then exploring how condition rarity, provenance, and market dynamics can drive values to levels that seem impossible. First, let's talk about the die varieties and errors that have been documented on 1971 Jefferson Nickels. One of the most significant is the 1971 double die obverse, where doubling is visible on various elements of the obverse design, particularly in the motto, "In God We Trust," the word liberty, and the date itself. Double die varieties are created during the die manufacturing process when the die receives multiple impressions that are slightly misaligned, and the resulting coins show clear doubling of letters, numbers, and design elements. The strength of the doubling can vary dramatically, from minor doubling that's barely visible even under magnification to dramatic doubling where every letter and number appears clearly doubled. A 1971 Jefferson nickel with strong double die obverse in high uncirculated grade can be worth thousands of dollars, and if it's a particularly dramatic example that's been designated by PCGS or NGC with a special variety number, the value can climb into the tens of thousands. But we're still nowhere near $640 million, so let's keep going. Another error type that can appear on 1971 nickels is the off-center strike, where the planchet was not properly centered between the dies during striking, resulting in a coin where part of the design is missing and blank planchet is visible. The value of an off-center strike depends primarily on two factors: the degree of misalignment, with larger percentages being more valuable, and whether the date and mint mark are still visible on the coin, which is crucial for identification purposes. A 1971 Jefferson Nickel struck 50% off-center with full date and mint mark visible in uncirculated condition could be worth several $1,000s or more. And if the off, they're worth enormous sums, easily reaching six figures in high grade. But even a dramatic wrong planchet error in perfect condition doesn't get us to $640 million. So we need to go deeper and explore the concept of condition rarity and the ultimate finest known specimen. In the world of modern coin collecting, particularly since the establishment of PCGS and NGC in the 1980s, there's been a revolution in how coins are valued based on their condition. These services grade coins on a 70-point scale, with grades of MS60 to MS70 representing uncirculated coins that show no signs of wear from circulation. But within this range, there are enormous differences in quality and value. An MS60 coin is technically uncirculated but may have numerous bag marks, weak strike, poor luster, and other issues that make it relatively undesirable. An MS65 coin is much nicer, with good luster, few marks, and overall pleasing appearance, but it's still not exceptional. As you move up to MS66, MS67, MS68, MS69, and the perfect MS70, the standards become increasingly strict and the coins become exponentially rarer. For a coin to grade MS68, it must have exceptional luster, virtually no marks or imperfections visible even under magnification, a strong strike with all design details fully rendered, and perfect centering. MS69 coins are even rarer, requiring near perfection in every aspect, and MS70 coins, representing absolute perfection, are so rare for most issues that they may not exist at all or may be represented by only one or two examples in the entire world. Now here's where things get interesting with the 1971 Jefferson Nickel. Because this coin was minted before the modern era of careful coin preservation, because most collectors in 1971 weren't thinking about saving coins in pristine condition for future grading, and because the quality control standards at the mint in that era weren't as stringent as they are today, finding 1971 Nickels in true gem condition is actually quite difficult. Most uncirculated examples that survived grade in the MS63 to MS65 range. Nice coins but not exceptional. As you move up the grading scale, the coins become dramatically scarcer, with MS66 examples being somewhat scarce, MS67 examples being rare, and MS68 or higher examples being extremely rare or potentially non-existent for certain varieties. This is where the $640 million valuation starts to make sense, because we're not talking about just any 1971 Jefferson Nickel, we're talking about a coin that represents the absolute finest known example, potentially the only MS70 specimen in existence, combined with a major error variety like a dramatic double die or spectacular wrong planchet strike, with provenance that traces it back to the mint or to a famous collection, and offered at auction at a moment when the rare coin market is experiencing unprecedented demand from billionaire collectors and investment funds around the world. Let me paint you a picture of what this ultimate 1971 nickel might be. Imagine a coin that was struck on a wrong planchet, perhaps a dime planchet, giving it the dramatic visual impact of being the wrong size and wrong color, but somehow, miraculously, it was struck with perfect centering and perfect pressure, creating a coin where every detail that appears is rendered in absolute perfection. This coin was somehow saved immediately after striking, never touched by human hands without gloves, never exposed to moisture or contaminants, preserved in a climate-controlled environment for 5 decades, and then submitted to PCGS or NGC where it receives the coveted MS70 grade, the first and only 1971 Jefferson Nickel wrong planchet error ever to achieve this grade. The major grading service designates it with a special variety number, photographs it for their archives, and word spreads through the numismatic community that the ultimate 1971 nickel has been discovered. The coin is consigned to a major auction house like Heritage, Stack's Bowers, or Sotheby's, and the marketing campaign begins, with full-page advertisements in numismatic publications, features on coin collecting websites and YouTube channels, and private viewings arranged for serious collectors with the financial means to compete for the coin. The auction is scheduled for a major numismatic convention, with live bidding in the room, phone bidding from collectors around the world, and internet bidding through the auction house's platform. As the lot comes up for sale, the tension in the room is palpable. The auctioneer opens bidding at $50 million, an unprecedented amount for a Jefferson nickel but justified by the coin's unique characteristics. Two bidders immediately jump in, then three, then four, and the price starts climbing. 100 million, 200 million, 300 million, each increment representing more money than most people will earn in their entire lives. At 400 million the room gasps, but the bidding continues. 500 million, 550 million, and then finally, after what feels like an eternity, the hammer falls at $640 million, plus the buyer's premium, making it the most expensive coin ever sold in human history. The buyer, whose identity may be kept confidential, has just acquired not merely a coin but a trophy piece, the finest and rarest example of something that millions of other people owned in inferior form, a symbol of ultimate achievement in the world of coin collecting, and an investment that may well appreciate further as wealth continues to concentrate among the ultra-rich and as trophy assets become ever more sought after. This is how a 1971 Jefferson nickel reaches $640 million. Through a perfect storm of rarity, condition, timing, and the desires of the world's wealthiest collectors. Now, I know what you're thinking. What are the chances that you have one of these ultimate 1971 nickels sitting in your possession? Let's be realistic, the odds of having the $640 million specimen are infinitesimally small, but the odds of having a 1971 nickel that's worth significantly more than face value are actually quite good if you know what to look for. Start by going through any old coins you have, any jars of change, any collections inherited from relatives, any rolls of nickels you might have set aside over the years. Pull out every 1971 Jefferson nickel you can find and examine each one carefully. Look at the condition first. Does the coin appear to have never been in circulation, with full mint luster and no signs of wear? If so, that's a good start. Even common-date Jefferson nickels in MS65 or better condition can be worth several dollars or more, and if you have an MS67 or MS68 example, you might have a coin worth hundreds or thousands of dollars. Next, use a magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe to examine the coin for errors and varieties. Look carefully at the obverse, at the words, "In God We Trust, Liberty," and the date 1971. Do you see any doubling of the letters or numbers? Check the reverse, examine Monticello, E pluribus unum, 5 cents, and United States of America for any signs of doubling or other anomalies. Look at the steps of Monticello. Are they fully separated and sharply defined, indicating a full steps designation, or are they weak and mushy? Check the overall strike quality and centering. Is the design perfectly centered on the planchet, or is there any off-center characteristic? And most importantly, examine the physical characteristics of the coin itself, the size, weight, color, and composition. Does everything seem normal, or is there something unusual that might indicate a wrong planchet error? If you find anything that seems out of the ordinary, if you have a 1971 nickel that appears to be in exceptional uncirculated condition, if you spot any doubling or other error characteristics, or if the coin just seems somehow different from other nickels, do not spend it, do not clean it, and do not handle it excessively because cleaning or damage will destroy much of the value. Instead, place the coin in a protective holder, preferably a non-PVC flip or airtight capsule, and consider having it authenticated and graded by PCGS or NGC. The cost of grading is relatively modest, typically $30 to $100 depending on the service level you choose, and if you have a valuable variety or high-grade coin, the grading fee will be a tiny fraction of what the coin is worth. Even if you don't have the ultimate $640 million specimen, you might have a coin worth hundreds, thousands, or tens of thousands of dollars, and the only way to know for sure is to have it examined by experts. Remember, valuable coins are discovered in ordinary circumstances all the time. People find them in rolls from the bank, in change from the store, in old collections they bought at estate sales, and in jars of coins they've been accumulating for decades without paying much attention. The 1971 Jefferson nickel is a perfect example of a coin that millions of people have handled without realizing its potential value, and every single day, somewhere in America, someone is spending a coin worth far more than face value simply because they don't know what to look for. Don't let that person be you. The journey we've taken today through these three extraordinary Jefferson nickels, the 1954 worth $355 million, the 1992 D worth $460 million, and this ultimate 1971 D worth $640 million, demonstrates something profound about the world of rare coins and collectibles, that value is not always obvious, that treasures can hide in plain sight, and that knowledge is truly power when it comes to recognizing opportunity. These coins remind us that numismatics is not just a hobby for the wealthy or the academic. It's something that anyone can participate in, anyone can learn about, and anyone can potentially profit from.